Good afternoon to all of you. So we are now in our week 13 for Adobe Animate CC for ICT animation. So what is Adobe Animate CC? Adobe Animate CC is widely used in the creative industry to develop engaging projects integrating video, sound, graphics, and animation. So you can create original content in Animate CC or import assets from other Adobe applications such as Photoshop or Illustrator. Quickly design, animation, and multimedia, and use code to integrate sophisticated interactivity. So for the installation, you must purchase the Adobe Animate CC application as part of Adobe Creative Cloud. The following specifications are the minimum required configurations. For the system requirements, under Windows is Intel, okay, Intel Pentium 4, Intel Centrino, Intel Xeon, or Intel Core Duo or compatible processor. For the Microsoft operating system, it must be at least Windows 7 with 64-bit or Windows 8.1 64-bit or a Windows 10 64-bit. There must be at least 2 gig of RAM, but it is recommended for 8 gig and a 1024-900 display, but it is also recommended to use 1220 by 1024. So for 4 gig of available hard disk space for installation is also a minimum requirement. Additional free space required during installation, so I cannot install or removable flash storage device. It must be in hard disk space. The broadband internet connection is for registration, but it is not that necessarily required, but it is required for software activation, validation of subscriptions, and access to online services. For the Mac OS, if you are a user of Mac, it is multi-core Intel processor. So a Mac OS by version 10.10 must be 64-bit. 10.11 is also 64-bit or 10.12 64-bit. So there must be at least 2 gig of RAM and a recommended 8 gig and 1024 by 900 display, but it is recommended to use 1280 by 1024. There must be at least QuickTime 12.x software. 4 gig of available hard disk space for installation required during. Okay, you cannot install on a volume that uses a case-sensitive file system or on a removable flash storage devices. So for starting, in Animate, the stage is where you lay out all your visual elements. The timeline organizes frames and layers, and other panels let you edit and control your creation, like this one. So as you can see here, there is a time frame. Here you can see you can incorporate images and shapes. In Animate, you must choose File and then New, and then there you are. For creating a new document, the new document dialog box will open. So under the General tab, choose the first option, which is the Action Script 3.0. And then on the right-hand side of the dialog box, you can choose the dimensions of the stage by entering new pixel values for the width and height. Enter 800 for width and 600 for height. Keep the ruler units as pixels. So understanding document types, there are playback environment. The playback or runtime environment is the technology that your final published files used to play. All document types are saved as FLA or XFL animate files. HTML5 canvas to create animated assets that play back in modern browser using HTML5 and JavaScript. The WebGL for pure animated assets to take advantage of hardware accelerated support of graphics. ActionScript 3.0 to create animation and interactivity that plays in the Flash player in a desktop browser. AIR to create animation and interactivity that plays as an application on Windows or Mac desktops. So AIR for Android, or there is also an AIR for iOS to publish an app for an Android or an Apple mobile device. So here it is, getting to know the workspace. We have here the edit bar, the application bar, properties panel, workspace switcher if you want to switch on eh, um, in the case that you open another workspace. And then tools panel, we also have a timeline here and then the layers. So in Photoshop, there is layers as well as in Animation CC. So choosing for the workspace for if you want to open a new workspace. Click the workspace switcher and choose a new workspace. If you have moved some of the panels around and want to return to one of the pre-arranged workspaces, choose Window under Window, then Workspaces, and then Reset. Preset name where you can input any name that you may want and click OK in the confirmation dialog box. To return to the default workspace, choose Window, Workspaces, Essentials. In this classroom in the book, we'll be using Essentials Workspace. So how to save for your workspace? Open the workspace switcher and choose New Workspace. Enter the name of your new workspace and then click OK. So about the stage, as you can see, here is the default page. However, after applying some necessary transitions, the stage will clip the content outside stage as selected already. So to scale the stage so that it fits completely in an animation window, choose View, Magnification, Fit in Window. You can also choose different magnification view options from the menu just above the stage. And then changing the stage properties, just easy in the properties pane of the properties panel. Note that the dimensions of the current stage are set at 800 by 600 pixels, which you chose when you created the new document. So about the library panel lets you organize library items in folders. See how often an item is used in a document and sort items by type. When you import items into Animate, you can import them directly onto the stage or into the library. If importing an item to the library panel, just choose File, Import, and Import to Library. In the Import to Library dialog box, select the background.png file in the Lesson 01 and Start folder and click Open. The Animate imports the selected PNG image which is selected and places it on the library panel. So continue importing photo1.jpg or photo2.jpg and so forth from the Start folder. Don't import, I repeat, don't import the last image. You'll use that image later in this lesson. Okay, so that's it. So in adding the item here, just choose Window, Library to open, and Library, and then select the background.png. For the animate documents, measure in time frames. As the movie plays, the playhead, shown as a red vertical line, advances through the frames in the timeline. At the bottom of the timeline, Animate indicates the selected frame number, the current frame rate, and the time that has elapsed so far in the movie. Now, the layers are stacked in on the order in which they overlap each other, so that objects on the bottom layer in the timeline are on the bottom of the stack on the page. You can hide, lock, or show the contents of layers as outlines by clicking the dots in the layer under the layer option icons here. In renaming a layer, select the existing layer in the timeline called Layer 1. Double-click the name of the layer to rename it and type background. Click outside the name box to apply the new name and click the dot before the lock icon to lock the layer. Locking a layer prevents you from accidentally making changes to it. If you want to add layers, select background layer in the timeline. Just choose Insert, Timeline, and then the layer. You can also click the New Layer button below the timeline. A new layer appears above the background layer. Now double-click the new layer to rename it and type Photo 1. Click outside the name box to apply the new name, and then select the top layer called Photo 1. Now choose Window. Under that is the library to open the library panel if it isn't already open, and then drag the library item called photo1.jpg from the library onto the stage. The Photo1 JPEG appears on the stage and overlaps the background image. Choose Insert also, and then Timeline, and then Layer, or click the New Layer button like this one, below the timeline to add a third layer and then rename the third layer as Photo 2. Now for inserting frames, select frame 48 in the background layer. Use the Resize Timeline View slider at the bottom right corner of the timeline to expand the timeline frames to make it easier to identify frame 48. And choose Insert, Timeline, Frame, F5, you can also right-click and choose Insert Frame from the context menu that pops up. Animate adds frames in the background layer up to the selected frame, which is the frame 48. And then select frame 48 in the photo layer. Choose Insert, Timeline, Frame F5. You can also right-click and choose Insert Frame from the menu. Select frame 48 in the photo 2 layer and insert frames on this layer. You now have 3 layers, all with 48 frames on the timeline. Since the frame rate of your Animate document is 24 frames per second, so your current animation can last to 2 seconds. How about selecting multiple frames? Just as you can hold down the Shift key to select multiple files on your desktop, you can hold down the Shift key to select multiple frames on the Animate timeline. And creating a keyframe is a keyframe indicates a change in context on the stage. Keyframes are indicated on the timeline as a circle. An empty circle means there is nothing in that particular layer at that particular time. A filled-in black circle means there is something in that particular layer at that particular time. Select frame on the Photo 2 layer now. As you select a frame, Animate displays the frame between or frame number beneath the timeline. Choose Insert, Timeline, Keyframe, which is F6. A new keyframe indicated by an empty circle appears in the Photo 2 layer in the frame 24. Select the new keyframe at frame 24 in the Photo 2 layer. Drag photo.jpg from your library onto the stage and the empty circle at frame 34 becomes filled, indicating that there is now content on the Photo 2 layer. At frame 24, your photo appears on the stage. For the moving keyframe, select the frame in frame 24 on the Photo 2 layer. Move your mouse cursor slightly and you'll see a box icon appear near your cursor indicating that you can reposition the keyframe. Drag the keyframe to frame 12 in the Photo 2 layer. For the properties, properties panel, let's give you quick access to the attributes you're most likely to need. What appears in the properties panel depends on what you've selected. For example, if nothing is selected, the properties panel includes options of the general animate document, including, of course, changing the stage color or dimensions. So for the positioning of an object on the stage at frame 1 on the timeline, select the photo.jpg image that you drag onto the stage in the Photo 1 layer. A blue outline indicates that the subject or the object is selected. In the Properties panel, type 50 for the X value and 50 naman for Y value. Please enter Windows or return for the Mac to apply the values. You can also drag the X and Y values to change their values. The photo moves to the left side of the stage. Now choose the window to transform to open the transform panel. In the transform panel, select rotate and type 12 in the rotate box or drag over the value to change the rotation. Please enter the Windows, press Windows, enter for the Windows or return for the Mac users to apply the value. Then select now the frame tab of the Photo 2 layer. Now click the Photo2.jpg on the stage to select it. Use the Properties panel and Transform panel to position and rotate the second photo in an interesting way. Use X is equal to 200 or Y is equal to 40 and a rotate of 6 to give it some contrast with the first photo. Just like this one. So working with the panels, this is the panel and some are expand icons, panel docs, collapse panel, panel groups, docs containing panels, and doc containing all the tools panel. So these are the tools panel. There are selections, drawing, and editing, and also for the options. So you can select the tool. When you select the tool, the options available at the bottom of the tools panel and the properties panel change. For example, when you select the rectangle tool, the object drawing mode and snap to object options appear. When you select the zoom tool, the enlarge and reduce options appear. So the tools panel contains too many tools to display all at once. Some tools are arranged in hidden groups in the tools panel, but only the tool you last selected from a group is displayed.